The following recording took place at OceanGate's headquarters in Everett, Washington, on January 19, 2018. In attendance were founder and CEO Stockton Rush, Director of Marine Operations David Lockridge, Director of Engineering Tony Neeson, Director of Finance and Human Resources Bonnie Carl, and Director of Logistics and Quality Assurance Scott Griffith. The meeting was in reference to a quality inspection and subsequent report performed by David Lockridge, who documented many problems and concerns with the Titan submersible.
Okay, so is the intention to best efforts get it scanned, or are we just not doing it? What is the reason we're not trying to get it scanned?
Because the data we would get from a scan would not be meaningful.
Does it not alarm you seeing what we see? It doesn't concern you?
Not at all, because carbon fiber is better in compression than tension, and that's what nobody understands. It's completely opposite of what everyone else says. Everyone says, oh, carbon fiber can't handle compression. They're full of shit, and I've proven them to be full of shit. This project is not for everyone, okay? And the question is, what I'm getting down to, it's clearly not an approach that you're comfortable with. You don't want to be associated with it. You don't want me to die.
Never once said I don't want to be associated with it. I am highlighting my safety concerns, which as an employee of the company,
I understand.
I've been here for nearly 3 years now, Stockton. I've seen the way it works. I am addressing what I view as safety concerns. Concerns that I have mentioned verbally,
correct,
which have been dismissed by everybody.
I've listened to them, and I have given you my response to them, yes. And you think my response is inadequate.
Correct.
Okay, so that's the impasse we're in. I've been fighting this thing since I started this business, and I don't want to fight it with you. And I don't want to put you in a position that you are feeling like you've been badgered into signing off of me going and killing myself. But I can't have you here to work on a project that you think has the potential to kill me and destroy an industry and participate in that activity. And I'm not going to do what you want. Well, that's the impasse.
Listen, Stockton, we're not getting answers. We're not getting correct answers. Mm-hmm. It's been a problem, and it has been a problem since day one. And we have been trying to make it work.
And the fact is, I know. I'm getting all the answers, and I'm the guy who's listening to everything that Tony's saying, everything that Will Conan's saying, everything that Boeing's saying, ATK, GD. I'm the guy who's collecting all that data, okay? It sits here. And if you don't have confidence in the CEO, then that's the wrong place to be. And that's what it comes down to.
I want this project to work. I came over here for this project, Stockton.
I understand you want this project to work, but yeah. I am telling you, I understand that. You're not going to get comfortable with my approach.
I disagree with your decisions.
I understand.
Yeah.
What would make you comfortable with continuing to be the director of marine operations here? Is it, I have to have the hull scanned. I
would like the hull scanned, yes, absolutely.
You have made it clear. These things have to be addressed to your satisfaction, not to my satisfaction, to your satisfaction. And on top of that, there's no way you're going to be comfortable with me going in the sub. Having you have such a deep-seated opinion that the approach that we are taking and I am pushing is the wrong one is not something we can deal with as a company. I mean, I can't have the director of marine ops not have confidence in the test plan or the construction of the vessel that he's in charge of. I mean, you can see it from my perspective. That just won't work. I'm not going to bend, you're not going to bend.
I like you and I respect you. We do have disagreements.
I understand.
A lot. But what the heck, for the sake of paying some money and doing some research and get this thing checked out.
We're not going to rehash this thing. I don't want anybody in this company who is uncomfortable with what we're doing. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of people out there who are excited about doing it. But I don't want to force people. We're doing weird shit here. And I am definitely out of the mold. There's no question. I'm doing things that are completely non-standard. And I'm sure the industry thinks I'm a fucking idiot. And I know Patrick Leahy's telling everybody we're stupid fools. That's fine. They've been doing that for 8 years. And I'm going to continue on the way I'm doing, but I'm not going to force people to join my religion if they don't want to. So you're going to be highly uncomfortable if we continue down this path to the level of it's not appropriate for me to put you in that position, for me to go do stuff that you think is insane, that I'm going to kill myself with a vehicle that hasn't been checked out to the way you want. And I'm going to try somehow have him be associated with that and overlook it, which he won't do. I have no desire to die. I got a nice granddaughter. I am going to be around. I understand this kind of risk. And I'm going into it with eyes open, and I think this is one of the safest things I will ever do. I am not dying. No one's dying under my watch, period.
The OceanGate Titan Submersible, a preventable tragedy. Today on Shipwrecks and Sea Dogs. Hello and welcome to Shipwrecks and Sea Dogs, Tales of Mishaps, Misfortune, and Misadventure. I'm your host, Rich Napolitano. The story of the Titan Submersible is the most requested story I've had in my almost 4 years of doing this podcast. It's a big story, it's a tragic story, and a very frustrating story. To understand the catastrophic failure of OceanGate's Titan Submersible, there is only one place to start, and that is with its founder and CEO, Stockton Rush. If the United States had a classic aristocracy, Stockton Rush's family would be included with the likes of the Astors, the Mellons, Kennedys, and Vanderbilts. His father's heritage can be traced back to two original signers of the Declaration of Independence, Richard Stockton and Benjamin Rush, and he is named, obviously, in honor of these men. Richard Stockton was a wealthy landowner from New Jersey and was partially responsible for the establishment of Princeton University. Benjamin Rush was an influential politician from Pennsylvania, as well as a social reformer, educator, and co-founder of Dickinson College. On Rush's mother's side, his grandfather was Ralph K. Davies, who was director of Standard Oil of San Francisco, and later chairman of American President Shipping Lines. San Francisco Symphony Hall was named after his wife, philanthropist Louise M. Davies. Money, power, and influence were not in short supply throughout his family's history. Richard Stockton Rush III was born on March 31, 1962 in San Francisco, the youngest of 5 children, to Richard Stockton Rush Jr. and Ellen Margaret Davies. His father, who was known as Tock, was chairman of Peregrine Oil and Gas. To give you an idea of the level of prestige and power in the Rush family, Tock was a member and later president of the super-secretive private gentlemen's club Bohemian Grove. This is a privately owned campground in a redwood forest near Monte Rio, California. Every July, some of the world's richest and most powerful elite come together for a multi-week gathering, although their purpose and their activities are highly guarded by a full-time, year-round security team. Stockton Rush grew up in San Francisco, with his family mingling among the city's elite. As a child, he wanted to be an astronaut and dreamed of being the first person to set foot on Mars. As an adolescent, he developed an interest in aviation and underwater exploration, and began scuba diving at age 12. He earned his pilot license at age 18, and at 19 became the youngest jet transport-rated pilot in the world when he obtained his DC-8 type captain's rating at the United Airlines Jet Training Institute. However, he soon learned that a defect in his vision would prohibit him from a career in aviation. Still, these activities showed his passion for adventure and desire to explore the unknown, a characteristic that would follow him throughout his whole life. Rush attended Princeton University, receiving a Bachelor of Science in Engineering degree in 1984, with a specialization in aerospace engineering. After a brief stint working for McDonnell Douglas as a flight test engineer, he returned to California and earned his MBA from the University of California, Berkeley in 1989. Rush later told Smithsonian Magazine about this time in his life, saying, "I had this epiphany that this was not at all what I wanted to do. I didn't want to go up into space as a tourist. I wanted to be Captain Kirk on the Enterprise. I wanted to explore." Stockton Rush married Wendy Weil in 1986, whom he met at Princeton, and they went on to have 2 children. Wendy herself comes from a wealthy family. She is the great-great-granddaughter of Isidore and Ida Strauss, co-owners of Macy's department store. Wendy also has a connection to the Titanic. Both Isidore and Ida died when it sank in 1912. In 1989, Stockton Rush purchased a kit for an experimental single-engine airplane, the Glacier 3, and built it himself from the 600-page manual. He flew this plane often for the rest of his life. That same year, Rush relocated to the Pacific Northwest to serve as chairman of Remote Control Technologies in Kirkland, Washington, and as a board member for Blueview Technologies of Seattle, a sonar manufacturing company. He continued his hobby of scuba diving and frequently explored the waters of Puget Sound. But in 2006, his interest in underwater exploration began in earnest after his first submarine excursion. He immediately saw the economic potential and a path to satisfy his passion for exploration. With his background in engineering, he embraced new technologies and scientific advances to support his vision. Rush first attempted to purchase a submersible, but was frustrated by the lack of privately owned submersibles in the world. Instead, he purchased parts from a London-based firm along with the blueprints and built a heavily modified Kittredge K350, which he named Suds. This was a two-man submersible, 4 meters in length, that could dive up to 10 meters. This simply scratched the surface, and Rush wanted more. In 2007, he started plans to form his own company to build submersibles. In 2009, this came to fruition when he and entrepreneur Guillermo Sonline founded OceanGate Inc. Rush later said, "I had come across this business anomaly, and I couldn't explain. If 2/3 of the planet is water, how come you can't access it?" This statement foreshadows the entrepreneurial attitude Stockton Rush had toward ocean exploration. For him, this was a business opportunity to fill an unmet market demand for private ocean exploration. There is nothing inherently malicious about this, and, if done responsibly, a for-profit venture such as OceanGate could provide not only private exploration, but serve as a tool for scientific study. The stated goal of OceanGate was to use commercial tourism to fund the development of new deep-diving submersibles that would enable further commercial ventures, including resource mining and disaster mitigation. An important driver for Stockton Rush was to do things differently, defy convention, and create a unique submersible out of materials never used before for this purpose. Advances in technology would spur innovation and drive his business. The charismatic and headstrong leader of OceanGate believed fear was the only limiting factor to innovation, especially in the specialized niche of submersible building. Limited competition didn't encourage experimentation, he thought, and he was going to change that. The public perception, he believed, that submersibles were dangerous caused the slowly developing industry of private ocean exploration. He also blamed increased regulations on submersibles and criticized the Passenger Vessel Safety Act of 1993. This law regulated the construction of ocean tourism vessels and prohibited dives below 150 feet, or about 46 meters, telling Smithsonian Magazine in 2019 that the law, quote, needlessly prioritized passenger safety over commercial innovation. In 2011, OceanGate's website included the following statement: "Since 1974, there has not been a serious injury or fatality on an American Bureau of Shipping certified passenger submersible," calling them, quote, the safest vehicles on the planet. Rush was also quite frank about exploiting the 230-mile exclusive economic zone surrounding the coast of the United States, and finding oil and gas reserves, rare minerals or diamonds, and rare chemicals. In 2009, OceanGate purchased its first submersible, the Antipodes, from Hoffman Yacht Sales for a reported $295,000. This vessel was built in 1973, originally as a vehicle for commercial divers working on the oil fields in the North Sea. After several redesigns and improvements, it was rated for depths up to 1,000 feet, or 305 meters, by the time OceanGate acquired it. Between 2010 and 2013, Antipodes made 130 dives, taking paying customers on various excursions, with passengers paying anywhere from $7,500 to $40,000. During this time, paying customers were not referred to as customers, passengers, or clients, but instead, they were called citizen scientists. In 2013, Guillermo Sonline left OceanGate, citing the company was transitioning from operating a fleet of excursion submersibles to engineering its own custom-built vehicles, and that was not his area of expertise. Sonline retained 500,000 shares of common stock in OceanGate, but no longer was involved with operations after this point. Stockton Rush was heavily keen on using carbon fiber for the construction of a new, innovative deep ocean submersible that could take passengers 12,500 feet, or 3,800 meters, down to the Titanic. To achieve this goal, OceanGate planned to build its first submersible, which it would name the Cyclops. However, the company ended up purchasing a 12-year-old submarine named Lula and used its steel pressure hull to create Cyclops I, launched in 2015. The 5-person submersible was rated for depths up to 500 meters and was used primarily for research and training, as well as a small number of commercial missions over several years. At this time, OceanGate began developing plans to take people on excursions to the wreck of the Titanic. Between 1991 and 2005, the 2 Russian Mir submersibles brought tourists down to the Titanic and even filmed the massive wreck for James Cameron's feature film. And in 2010, deep ocean expeditions led 12-day dives, taking 20 tourists at a time to the wreck, at a cost of $59,000 per person. Stockton Rush wanted OceanGate to be the next and most innovative company to take people on dives to the Titanic. In 2015, OceanGate moved its headquarters to the waterfront of Everett, Washington, and in 2016, Rush took the Cyclops I on a test dive to the wreck of the Italian liner Andrea Doria off Nantucket Island. The Andrea Doria lies 160 to 250 feet underwater, and so this was not a deep-sea test. However, the test dive did prove to be significant. Aboard Cyclops I was Stockton Rush and OceanGate Marine Operations Director David Lockridge. Rush insisted on piloting the sub, despite Lockridge having far more experience piloting submersibles. Rush brought the vessel far too close to the wreck, which is known to be highly unstable and very dangerous, even as Lockridge and the passengers on board became nervous and voiced their displeasure. When Lockridge reminded Rush not to get too close, Rush was annoyed and replied, "Don't tell me what to do." Rush then brought the sub directly under the bow, within just meters of striking the vessel. Lockridge was irate and demanded control, while Rush kept saying, "We're stuck." Lockridge made several attempts to take the controller away, but each time Rush refused. One of the paying customers on board finally screamed at Rush, "Give me the effing controller," with tears in her eyes. Rush then threw the controller at Lockridge, which struck him on the head and fell to the floor, which caused a button to break off. After quickly fixing the controller, Lockridge piloted the vessel safely away from the wreck, about 50 meters. Grateful passengers thanked him for moving them out of harm's way. Although Rush later thanked Lockridge for getting them out of trouble, Lockridge was furious, and tension remained high between these two men. Later that year, OceanGate announced plans to build Cyclops II using a carbon fiber pressure hull. Using carbon fiber for submersibles was not a new concept. The U.S. Navy experimented with a carbon fiber pressure hull in the 1980s, with excellent results. The project, called the Advanced Unmanned Search System Vehicle, or AUSS, resulted in a cylindrical vessel 30 3/4 inches wide and 5.5 feet long. Test results showed the unmanned and remotely operated submersible could withstand at least 100 dives to depths up to 6,100 meters, about 20,000 feet, before risk of failure. In 2012, film director James Cameron successfully piloted the 1-person deep-sea Challenger submersible to the bottom of the Mariana Trench, almost 36,000 feet, or 11,000 meters. But its hull was made from a composite material called syntactic foam, not carbon fiber. Carbon fiber had never been thoroughly tested or certified for deep-sea submersibles. Still, Rush touted the material as the future of submersibles. He often told the media, "Carbon fiber is 3 times better than titanium for strength to buoyancy." Carbon fiber is also resistant to corrosion and has excellent fatigue tolerance. Its strength and lightweight characteristics make it a popular choice for the aerospace, automotive, and sports industries. While these are indeed advantages, carbon fiber has several inherent weaknesses. According to Carbon FG, a manufacturer of carbon fiber products, a significant drawback is its tendency to shatter when its limitations are exceeded, leading to irreversible damage and potential casualties. It is a brittle material with low ductility, meaning it is highly resistant to flexing and stretching. This can be problematic under high stress, such as the immense pressure of deep-sea exploration. Rush visited the respected firm Deep Ocean Exploration and Research Marine Operations in Alameda, California, to learn the results of the company's Project Deep Search. President Liz Taylor, an engineer herself, warned Rush of using the untested and unproven carbon fiber to build his pressure hull, saying, "With the carbon fiber, it's been shown to not be very happy when it's being immersed, first of all, and then being hollow on the inside or just one atmosphere on the inside, and then having the tremendous pressure of the ocean trying to push in on it. It's not the right material." Taylor added another prescient warning, saying, "We all told him, someone is going to be killed in this thing, and you've got to not do it." Initial design plans for the submersible's hull and systems were created in conjunction with engineers at Boeing and the University of Washington's Applied Physics Lab. However, Boeing engineers were not convinced the vessel could withstand the pressure of deep-sea missions and had their concerns. Undeterred, OceanGate had a 1/3 scale model of Cyclops II built entirely out of carbon fiber in 2015 and tested it in an 8-foot testing tank at the Applied Physics Lab. The scale model's carbon fiber domes at each end shattered at pressures equating to a depth of 3,000 meters. The dome end caps were replaced with aluminum discs for additional testing and remained stable up to pressures equating to 4,100 meters. New carbon fiber domes were used in March of 2016, but these also failed at a pressure equal to 3,000 meters. A fourth test, again using aluminum caps instead of carbon fiber domes, reached a pressure equal to 4,500 meters before the hull imploded. One engineer involved with the testing said, "This scared the shit out of everyone." Following these tests, Stockton Rush wrote to OceanGate shareholders, "Over the next months, we will analyze the data in detail, and then run a test with a new cylinder through at least 1,000 cycles to confirm its durability." According to numerous OceanGate employees, these tests were never done. Engineers often use what is called test to destruction to gather data and go through many iterations of design and testing until results are satisfactory. OceanGate only tested to destruction on its scale model pressure hull, and never performed tests of the carbon fiber hull with its titanium domes, which were included in its final design. Nevertheless, Stockton Rush went ahead with construction of the full-size submersible, with a requirement to increase the hull from 4.5 inches thick to 5 inches thick. Once again, specifications that were not tested. It was around this time that OceanGate decided to part with the University of Washington APL engineers and create an in-house engineering team, and hired Tony Neeson as director of engineering. Mr. Neeson was a U.S. Navy diver, who then earned a degree in material science engineering from the University of California, Berkeley. He had over a decade of experience, primarily in avionics and aeronautics prior to being hired by OceanGate, but had no experience working on submersibles. In January 2017, the contract to build the full-sized carbon fiber pressure hull for Cyclops II was given to Spencer Composites. OceanGate provided challenging requirements. The hull must be able to withstand 6,600 pounds per square inch, correlating to a depth of 4,000 meters, or just over 13,000 feet, and allowed just 6 weeks to do it. By May of 2017, OceanGate began taking reservations for excursions, at a cost of $105,129. Construction was completed at the end of 2017. The submersible was 22 feet long and weighed approximately 21,000 pounds. Its 8.1 feet long pressure hull was made of 5-inch thick carbon fiber and polymer composite, surrounded by a fiberglass outer hull. The forward titanium dome was the only entry or exit and housed a 53-centimeter diameter viewing window made of 6-inch thick acrylic. The aft titanium dome was sealed off from the interior cabin by a bulkhead and contained the vessel's control systems. Both the forward and aft domes used titanium coupling rings to attach to the hull. The aft portion of the submersible was a tail cone, making for a unique design, and the entire vehicle was supported by a metal frame, including a landing frame below. Inside of the submersible was an oxygen tank for the cabin, plus 4 additional emergency tanks. The pilot sat in the aft section of the cabin and used 2 monitors for viewing the external pilot camera, communications, and monitoring the sonar. The vehicle itself was controlled by an off-the-shelf game controller. The viewport window in the forward titanium dome was constructed by Hydrospace Group. Its CEO, Will Conan, expected OceanGate to follow the testing standards outlined by the American Society of Mechanical Engineers. Those standards, according to Conan, would require OceanGate to test at least 5 viewport windows to destruction at high pressure, cycle a viewport from low to high pressure 1,000 times, and subject another viewport to 5 times the intended pressure for 300 consecutive hours to see how much the plastic reacted under pressure. But those tests were not conducted by OceanGate. Over a period of years, added Conan, it was pretty obvious that OceanGate wasn't going to do the testing. Concerned, Conan offered to manufacture a viewport for OceanGate that was already tested and rated for 4,000 meters, and offered a significant discount to do so. Stockton Rush flatly declined. The original design for the viewport was delivered by Hydra Group as ordered, but Conan only rated it up to 650 meters. Rush insisted that the vessel have space for 5 people, which would include the pilot, an expert guide, and 3 paying customers, telling an audience at a GeekWire summit, "You don't do the coolest thing you're ever going to do in your life by yourself. You take your wife, your son, your daughter, your best friend. There have to be 4 people besides the pilot." OceanGate Director of Marine Operations and Submersible pilot David Lockridge conducted a thorough quality control inspection of the finished submersible in January of 2018. His written report documented 27 issues with the vehicle, including faulty O-ring seals on the titanium domes, missing bolts, flammable materials, and concerns about its carbon fiber hull. Lockridge was concerned that the hull had never been tested to destruction, and that he would not allow any manned test dives until a hull scan was completed. On January 19th, an extremely contentious meeting took place at OceanGate headquarters regarding the inspection performed by Lockridge. You heard a small portion of that recorded meeting at the top of this episode, in which Lockridge insisted on having the hull scanned. There is a clear rift between Rush and Lockridge, but Bonnie Carl and Scott Griffith shared their concerns as well, and criticized Director of Engineering Tony Neeson for his lack of communication and unwillingness to share information.
I'm uncomfortable with you doing the man tests as well, and the thought of going down to the Bahamas and bringing back a dead body would mentally f*** everyone who is down there, and that scares the shit out of me. I'm coming at this from my accounting background as an auditor, and I can have a client tell me his books are perfect.
I know.
I don't trust him.
Correct.
I mean, I may trust him as a person.
It's trust but
verify.
Correct.
And I feel a little bit like we're getting some pushback on the verification piece. It's a trust me, and that's difficult.
We're jumping ahead and we're just making a lot of assumptions. And that's why it's so critical through this development process that we collect accurate data. We have performance reports from engineering. We take that quantitative data and move forward.
My frustration partially comes from trying to get additional knowledge from Tony. He puts up walls. He stops you at, I want to know this stuff. And granted, he's willing to teach me about strain gauges, and that's great. But I feel like everything else is, trust me, I'm an engineer, and you don't need to see that.
So do I.
That's frustrating. This group should be the most open group. We should be talking with each other constantly. Pilots, engineers, operations, we should all be on the same page. And it's an us against them, and that's going to kill this company.
Neeson didn't say much during this meeting, nor was he present for the entire meeting. But what he did say comes across as defensive and adversarial with Lockridge.
All I'm asking for is information here.
Okay, and I'm telling you.
Information. I've got it now. We don't have information.
No, we do.
Oh, no. Hold on.
No, we have all the information we need.
Right, okay.
No. You can't dismiss that.
I have to dismiss it because I've asked to see it.
You don't have to see it.
Tony?
Shortly after this meeting, Stockton Rush fired David Lockridge, who was given 10 minutes to collect his belongings. David Lockridge went on to file a whistleblower complaint with the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, or OSHA. OceanGate then filed a lawsuit against Lockridge for sharing proprietary information, prompting a countersuit by Lockridge for wrongful termination. These cases were settled out of court in November 2018, and Lockridge withdrew his complaint with OSHA. With the most experienced submersible pilot at OceanGate now out of the picture, Stockton Rush announced that Bonnie Carl would take over as the company's submersible pilot. Carl, an accountant, had no experience whatsoever in piloting or engineering. She was shocked, to say the least, and not interested, and soon left the company. Marine Technology Society, an organization that promotes marine technology, was alarmed by the apparent turbocharged development and lack of proper testing going on at OceanGate. Will Conan, of the aforementioned Hydra Group, was the chairman of the group's Manned Submersible Committee, and in March of 2018 drafted a letter to Rush, writing, "Our apprehension is that the current experimental approach adopted by OceanGate could result in negative outcomes, from minor to catastrophic, that would have serious consequences for everyone in the industry." 30 other industry experts signed their names to this letter. Ultimately, it was never sent, but according to Conan, he and Rush had a, quote, "frank conversation. It was an adult conversation, and we agreed to disagree." In March of 2018, the Cyclops II was officially renamed to Titan. OceanGate reported that Titan was being developed and assembled in Washington, but would be owned by a Bahamian entity, will be registered in the Bahamas, and will operate exclusively outside the territorial waters of the United States. However, it was learned that only the company, OceanGate Expeditions Limited, was registered in the Bahamas. Regarding OceanGate, the Bahamian government later told the Chicago Tribune, its submersible Titan and its support vessel associated with the recent tragedy are not registered under the Bahamas flag and are, therefore, beyond the jurisdiction and purview of the design, construction, and operational regulatory standards which would be applicable to Bahamian flag vessels. Matt McCoy, OceanGate operations director at the time, recalled Rush's statements about registering the vehicle. He said that they were going to flag the Titan in the Bahamas and launch out of Canada, so they wouldn't fall under U.S. jurisdiction. But if the Coast Guard became a problem, he would buy himself a congressman and make it go away. After that, I resigned from the company. In fact, Titan was never registered in any country. This means it didn't fly any national flag or have a port of registry. It had no official number or formal documentation as a vessel under any country's maritime registry. It was what is called stateless, and was not operating under the jurisdiction of any authority. As far as official records were concerned, Titan didn't exist. A number of industry experts, including Will Conan, David Lockridge, and Rob McCallum from within OceanGate, had urged Stockton Rush to have the Titan classed. A classed vessel has been inspected and certified by a third-party organization, such as the American Bureau of Shipping, Det Norske Veritas, or DNV, or Lloyd's Registry. Virtually all commercial vessels, including submersibles, are classed. Rush did look into getting classed by DNV, but balked at the $50,000 fee and withdrew his application. Rush claimed Titan was so innovative that it would take years to get classed. In a 2019 blog post on OceanGate's website, the company wrote, "Bringing an outside entity up to speed on every innovation before it is put into real-world testing is anathema to rapid innovation." In a later email to OceanGate consultant Rob McCallum, Stockton Rush wrote, "Titan and its safety systems are way beyond anything currently in use. I have grown tired of industry players who try to use safety arguments to stop innovation and new entrants from entering their small existing market. Since starting OceanGate, we have heard the baseless cries of, 'You are going to kill someone,' way too often." McCallum cut ties with OceanGate shortly after. David Negley of Boeing, who assisted with early carbon fiber hull designs, sent his analysis of the hull manufactured by Spencer Composites. In his analysis, Negley warned, "We think you are at high risk of a significant failure at or before you reach 4,000 meters. We do not think you have any safety margin. Be cautious and careful." Rush placed a lot of his faith and confidence in the acoustic monitoring system to gauge the health of the carbon fiber composite hull. Designed by outside contractor Alan Green, this system was essentially a series of microphones that carefully monitored the sounds coming from the carbon fibers in the hull. Rush explained that this system could detect the sound of, quote, micro-buckling in the hull way before it fails. When Alan Green heard this explanation by Rush, he became concerned and wrote an email to OceanGate. Green explained that the sounds coming from the hull indicate irreversible damage, writing, "It is my belief, substantiated by many years of experience, that composite structures all have a finite lifetime. While I do not intend to be an alarmist, I did not sleep well and arose early to send this message." Despite all of the warnings from industry experts, even from within OceanGate, Stockton Rush was focused on taking paying customers on expeditions, scheduled to begin in June of 2018. Preliminary shallow water tests were performed in Puget Sound, and in April of 2018, Titan was transported to Marsh Harbor in the Bahamas for deepwater testing. On May 8th, Titan was launched from its Launch and Recovery System platform, or the LARS, and dived to a depth of 6 meters. 3 days later, Rush took the sub down himself to a depth of 35 meters. After which, 15 problems were included in Titan's maintenance log, including its aft fairing being ripped off while being towed, communications failures, drop weight failures at both depth and at the surface, and water ingress to the starboard thruster. OceanGate announced its scheduled 2018 expeditions to the Titanic were postponed until 2019, citing complications due to bad weather, but that Titan would continue with tests throughout the year. A series of uncrewed dives took place between June 21st and June 26th, and Titan reached a depth of 4,000 meters. 11 crewed dives took place in the Bahamas over the coming months, reaching a maximum depth of 2,487 meters. In December of 2018, Rush piloted the Titan on a solo mission to 3,939 meters, and became just the second person after filmmaker James Cameron to reach such depths. Its acoustic monitoring system measured 153 total incidents per sensor during the dive, including many loud, concerning pops. Director of Engineering Tony Neeson was alarmed, saying those pops mean the hull is breaking. Still, following this dive, OceanGate released the following statement. Not only did this dive completely validate OceanGate's innovative engineering and the construction of Titan's carbon fiber and titanium hull, but it also means systems are a go for the 2019 Titanic Survey Expedition, the world's deepest adventure, scheduled to begin next summer. Tony Neeson wrote to his team, "Diving to such depths is extremely complicated if you want to be untethered, communicate with the surface, be location tracked with reasonable accuracy, and monitor the health of your vehicle. And we have delivered. You all have a lot to brag about." Another deepwater test dive was conducted on April 17, 2019. On board were pilot Stockton Rush, Joel Perry, president of OceanGate Expeditions, Carl Stanley, owner of the Roatan Institute of Deep Sea Exploration and an experienced submersible operator, and Petros Mathiodakis, a field technician for 2G Robotics, participating in the dive to test equipment. Titan reached 3,760 meters, but again, many loud pops and cracking sounds were heard on board, and recorded by the acoustic monitoring system. Following the dive, Carl Stanley warned Rush of Titan's potential failure, writing in a letter, "The acoustic signatures we observed yesterday do not appear to correspond with typical failure modes, such as random fiber breakage. The sounds we heard seemed indicative of a localized flaw or defect in the hull structure being subjected to significant external pressures, resulting in crushing or damage. The intensity and persistence of the sounds, particularly their continuation at depth, point to the possibility of a specific area of the hull material experiencing progressive degradation or becoming spongy. The only question in mind is whether it will fail catastrophically or not." Stanley described the sounds as having a sharp, percussive quality, resembling the sounds of gunshots coming from Titan's hull. Multiple other problems were encountered on the dive, including thrusters malfunctioning, battery issues, and the exterior lights failing. Stanley later admitted that he had no idea of the terrible danger he was in at the time. OceanGate engineers determined the pressure from these deepwater test dives had compressed Titan's hull far greater than what was intended or expected. Tony Neeson expressed his concerns, pointing to potentially critical structural issues. Nevertheless, Rush asked Neeson to sign off on the planned upcoming Titanic expeditions, but Neeson refused, stressing that Titan's hull was still an untested prototype, with no established safety standards or benchmarks to operate as a viable manned submersible. More test dives were scheduled to further assess Titan's hull integrity. In May of 2019, during a pre-dive inspection, a significant crack in the carbon fiber hull was found, measuring 4 feet in length and resulting in 11 square feet of carbon fiber delaminating. In other words, the layers had separated. After further inspection back at OceanGate's facilities in Everett, Washington, Stockton Rush ordered his engineers to grind down the crack to determine its depth, repair it, reassemble the sub in 3 weeks, and then dive it again. Rush wanted Tony Neeson to pilot Titan on the upcoming Titanic missions. The once confident defender of Rush and Titan objected, saying he would not go down in the sub. OceanGate Chief Operating Officer Robert Schumann released a statement on June 5, 2019, announcing Titanic expeditions for 2019 were once again postponed due to legal complications with its support vessel, Havila Harmony. While there were legal issues resulting in Havila Harmony withdrawing from the project, the real reason for the postponement was Titan's damaged hull. The crack in the hull was never mentioned, and employees were told to keep it quiet. In July, Stockton Rush fired Director of Engineering Tony Neeson, claiming 2 people on OceanGate's board of directors said Neeson should have known the hull would fail, telling Neeson, either you go or I go, and it's not going to be me. Tony Neeson later said that he did know it would fail and did inform Stockton Rush in a report. In a further cost-cutting measure, additional engineering staff were let go in the coming months, and the overall engineering team was trimmed down to roughly half of its original number. Many of the engineers who remained were recent university graduates and were inexperienced. Rush was insistent on getting Titan back into operation to maintain credibility with the public. In the summer of 2019, Stockton Rush deemed the sub operational again, but at shallower depths. Prior to a test night dive, an incident on August 7, 2019 was close to catastrophic. During a steep descent, equipment inside of Titan shifted due to the newly ground-down interior of the hull. The high-pressure air lines were stretched as a result, nearly resulting in an explosion inside the vessel. 2 months later, in October, the cracked Titan hull was sent to the Deep Ocean Testing Facility in Bethesda, Maryland for pressure tests. Over 5 days, and at a cost of $60,200, tests revealed the hull could only be rated for a depth of 3,000 meters, not deep enough for Titanic expeditions. OceanGate then announced it would be building 2 new submersibles, Cyclops II and Cyclops IV, designed to reach depths up to 6,000 meters. That's going to do it for Part 1 of the OceanGate Titan Submersible, a Preventable Tragedy. Part 2 will be coming soon. Shipwrecks and Sea Dogs is written, edited, and produced by me, Rich Napolitano. Original theme music is by Sean Siegfried. For ad-free listening, please subscribe at patreon.com/shipwreckspod, now with 3 tiers to choose from, starting at just $5 a month. All tiers get ad-free episodes and bonus episodes with different perks for joining. Go to patreon.com/shipwreckspod to subscribe. You can also join the Officers Club now directly through Apple Podcasts for just $4.99 a month. Simply find Shipwrecks and Sea Dogs on Apple Podcasts and click the banner to subscribe. Last but not least, please be sure to rate and review Shipwrecks and Sea Dogs on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Please join me again next time. And as always, don't forget to wear your life jackets.